Hello, listeners, and welcome to a brand new episode of Second Take Cinema, coming at you from the glorious Impala Films headquarters in sunny Southend-on-Sea. As always, I'm your host, Jamie Evans, joined, as always, by Mr. Rory Jocelyn.
Well, hello, everybody.
And today, rev your engines, check your rear-view mirrors, and get ready to hit the road as we journey back to 1969 to give a second take to Easy Rider. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are looking at landmark counterculture film 1969's Easy Rider, directed by Dennis Hopper, supposedly written by Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, and Terry Southern, starring Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda, along with Jack Nicholson.
Also produced by Peter Fonda. That's important for something I'm going to bring up later.
Produced by Peter Fonda. Cinematography, such as it is, by Laszlo Kovacs and Baird Bryant, and edited, apparently, by Don Camburn. Edited in the sense that they just compiled what footage they had, yes. Budget was $400,000, and it made a whopping $60 million, so very profitable.
Yep.
It is described as a landmark counterculture film and a touchstone for a generation that captured the national imagination. Easy Rider explores the societal landscape, issues and tensions towards adolescence in the United States during the 1960s, such as the rise of the hippie movement, drug use, and communal lifestyle. Real drugs were used in scenes showing the use of marijuana and other substances. That's interesting because historically, I don't think that's accurate, because I'm fairly certain. I just need to check one thing real quick.
Even if there is a film that did it earlier, I imagine this is the one that caught the zeitgeist doing it.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that that's not it. It's just, I think the dates don't line up. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
This is considered to be a film explaining the rise of the hippie movement in July, and it came out July 14th, 1969.
Yes.
Historically speaking, the end of the hippie movement, what I've always been taught and everything I've ever read in books, the end of the hippie movement is 8th of August, 1969, when Charles Manson is caught. Capturing of Charles Manson is that is often cited as the main thing that destroyed the hippie movement.
I think that's propaganda, because Charles Manson wasn't a hippie in the conventional sense. He was a cult leader.
Oh yeah, not because he was a hippie,
right?
But it basically made being a hippie not cool anymore, because it started as a hippie thing that then evolved into a cult.
I would have to ask my dad. The reason being, my dad was a hippie during this era, and it lasted a lot longer than that.
Okay,
basically it lasted until the mods. Other than stragglers, but the
mods in the 60s as well, though.
Mods was 70s.
69 is that's the last 60s.
No,
so
mods,
are they late 70s?
I think because you've got I think they're mid to late 70s, because Del Boy in the first few episodes, the first season basically of Only Fools and Horses, is a mod.
Okay, because put it this way, so I've always heard of being I read a lot of history. I've always heard that Charles Manson is what destroys the hippie movement.
They were big cultural zeitgeist switches.
Yeah,
but I don't think they were individually, it's not that clear cut.
Because I'll tell you, certainly by 75, hippies definitely are not the big thing anymore, because 75 is the dawn of the disco era.
Well, you had mods and rockers at the same time as the disco era. They were slightly different.
I think I've said before, I do feel like it's a coast thing in America.
Yeah.
Because the disco era was mainly Detroit, New York, East Coast.
Sure.
And I feel like hippies were almost always West Coast, they're California, Arizona, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well,
you don't really get many hippies in New York City, do you?
No, and the other part of that as well is, of course, is we're talking there about America specifically, and America is vast. So you could have, like, hippie culture in one area is, like, the dominant counterculture. But in a completely different state, hippies barely exist, and it's something else.
Right.
Whereas in the UK, obviously, we're much smaller. We're smaller than almost every single state individually. So we had mods. Well, we had the mods. I don't think America had mods. They had the rockers, which we then imported at the same time as the mods, pretty much.
We got the New Romantics at one point, didn't we?
New Romantics in the 80s. I don't think the New Romantics were very much an American thing.
No, I don't think they lasted long in Britain either, because they were a joke.
They were like sort of early to mid 80s and then just died very quickly, didn't they?
Yeah. The film received mostly positive reviews from critics. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called it pretty but lowercase cinema. Pretty but lowercase cinema, despite the uppercase pious statement about our society, which is sick. He was mildly impressed by the cinematography, rock score, and Jack Nicholson's performance. Penelope Gilliatt of The New Yorker said that it speaks tersely and aptly for this American age that is both the best of times and the worst of times. Roger Ebert added Easy Rider to his great movies list in 2004, and it holds an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the site's consensus reading, edgy and seminal, Easy Rider encapsulates the dreams, hopes, and hopelessness of 1960s counterculture. It was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Jack Nicholson, and Best Original Screenplay for Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, and Terry Southern. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival and won Best First Work for Dennis Hopper at the Cannes Film Festival, and it won a whole bunch of other things. In 1998, Easy Rider was added to the United States National Film Registry, having been deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. In April 2019, a restored version of the film was selected to be shown at the Cannes Classics section at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival. And just to speak briefly on its significance, along with Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate, Easy Rider helped to kickstart the new Hollywood era during the late 60s and the 1970s. The major studios realized that money could be made from low-budget films made by avant-garde directors. Heavily influenced by the French New Wave, the films of the so-called post-classical Hollywood came to represent a countercultural generation increasingly disillusioned with its government, as well as the government's effects on the world at large and the establishment in general. Although Jack Nicholson appears only as a supporting actor, and in the last half of the film,
he's only in 17 minutes of this film.
Is that it?
That's all his screen time.
The standout performance signalled his arrival as a movie star, along with his subsequent film, 5 Easy Pieces, in which he had a lead role. I really want to see 5 Easy Pieces.
Yeah.
Vice President Spiro Agnew criticised Easy Rider, along with the band Jefferson Airplane, as examples of the permissiveness of the 1960s counterculture. I'm not quite sure what he means by that. The film's success and the new era of Hollywood that it helped usher in gave Hopper the chance to direct again with complete artistic control. The result was 1971's The Last Movie, which was a notable box office and critical failure, effectively ending Hopper's career as a director for well over a decade. It also gave Fonda the chance to direct with the hired hand, although he rarely produced ever again.
Before we talk about the film in and of itself...
Yeah, because we still have to do the quiz.
Yeah. I just want to throw in a couple of extra bits to, about this film.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bear in mind, it was nominated for having the best screenplay. Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda did not write a full script for the movie and made most of it up as they went along. They didn't even have a full crew, instead picking up hippies across communes across the country, and used friends and passers-by to hold cameras. During all this, they were mostly drunk and stoned. When we get to it, you can tell. There's also a lot of behind-the-scenes ruckus in regards to the fact that it seems Dennis Hopper was very, hard to get on with. There's been a couple of points where, basically, bearing in mind that Peter Fonda was the producer, as well as one of the lead stars of this film, he tried to have Dennis Hopper removed from the movie because Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper quarrelled continuously during the shoot. As the film's producer, Fonda did his utmost to have co-star and director Hopper fired. So it wasn't even just like they didn't get on. Bear in mind, most of this time they're drunk and off they're not on weed.
Yeah.
If you can't get on with someone when you're on weed, when can you get on with someone? But one of the plus sides of this, they mentioned the soundtrack. Other than films like the Beatles' own movies, things like that, and obviously the Elvis movies, this was one of the first, even though it's common now, this was one of the first one of the first films, really, that was a success, that had a soundtrack mostly made up of licensed music.
Yeah.
Almost no films outside of ones that had a musical star used licensed music up to this point. They always hired like Jerry Goldsmith or a big composer to generate their own score. That made this that must have been something that felt incredibly counterculture at this point. There are many ways in which this film broke the mold, and we'll get down to whether or not that's always a good thing in a moment. I can see why this made waves. So I just thought that those would be interesting tidbits to keep in mind.
And we'll be back to talk about Easy Rider after this word from our sponsors. Okay, so we're back. And we're here to talk about Easy Rider, one of the most influential films of all time. One of those films that is legendary in its status, monolithic above all films. And much like Apocalypse Now, you finally see it, and you kind of look at yourself, you look inwards to your soul, and you say, why? And trying to be reasonable here, the only answer I can come up with is you had to see it at the time.
I think you're 100% correct.
Because this film, by today's standards, is capital G garbage. This is... So, Inside Baseball, for all you listeners, we've actually done a bulk recording session at the start of the year.
Yes.
Literally over the New Year's weekend. We've done
3
something...
straight days.
Yeah. We've done something like 12 or 13 films.
At least.
In the last 3 days. This is the worst one we've watched.
It's one of...
It's the worst.
I'm trying to think back to everything. No. Man of Steel was still in there, so...
No, Man of Steel's better than this.
I'm sorry, this is...
Man of Steel has a beginning and an end.
This has an end?
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say it at the beginning.
It has an end that is set up at the beginning, at least.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. You see Zod, you see Superman, you know they're going to kill each other.
Who cares?
This has 2 random hillbillies come out of nowhere.
This has a lot more to say than Man of Steel ever had.
Okay, we are going to disagree. Don't get me wrong, Man of Steel has nothing to say.
This has something to say.
No, I'm going to let my inner beast out now. This is one of those films that thinks it has something to say, and in actual fact is vapid trash. Now, I'm going to be nice. It may not have been vapid trash at the time. I don't know, quite frankly. I don't know what films similar to this came out before it. Although, based on that list, quite a few. There was quite a few that were from before 69.
A year, 2 or 3 years prior, yeah.
This played to me like... And I'm not going to bother summing up the plot for people. Do you know why? Because there is no plot.
Yeah. There's things that happen.
Yes. Things just happen for 90 minutes until the film just sort of ends. So, here's something I come across a lot when I read indie scripts. Yeah. People think tragic ending equals good. So despite the fact there is no setup, there is no build-up to the tragic ending, they will throw a curveball in and be like, oh no, the heroes died. That's what happens here.
Yep.
Tragic endings happen when they are foreshadowed. The Notebook, for example. It feels like a crushing inevitability that they are moving endlessly towards. To credit a film we haven't watched yet, Thelma and Louise.
Right.
Thelma and Louise very much feels like they are running out of road all the way through.
Yeah.
That there is an inevitable end point they are going to reach, and that end point is not going to be good for them.
Sure.
Hell, Devil's Rejects has it.
Yep.
It's the only good Rob Zombie movie. This felt to me like at no point in the filmmaking process did anyone have any idea where this was going to go. To the point where, so Jack Nicholson's in the film for how long did you say? 17 minutes?
17 minutes.
And then he dies, right?
Yeah. Once he's out of the film runs out of road.
The death comes so quickly and with so little build-up, it kind of feels like there was no plan for that. It just kind of feels like Jack Nicholson got hired for another job and went, sorry, fellas, I need to go do a real movie now.
Either that or they just couldn't afford him past a certain amount of days, because Jack Nicholson is famous to say, I'm paid so much for... I don't know if he did that at this point in time of his career, but he's famously said, it's like, I'm paid, I think it's $100,000 per minute of finished screen time.
Right.
Something like that. I can't remember the exact fee. He said it in an interview once. So it's like, basically, I'll do as many takes, etc. as you want, but overall, like, my fee is very high. And his statement for that is, that means that generally the directors, etc., don't waste my time.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Can I try? So, here's the thing. I'm a biker, not a Hell's Angel, but I'm a biker. I like biker movies. This is my third one I've brought along. This one is ultimately the most iconic. Pray for the Wildcats is so little known that it doesn't really classify as, I couldn't go, this made a massive cultural swing. It was more of an oddity, an interesting oddity.
It was better than this.
Yeah. I agree with you.
It's a TV movie with William fucking Shatner in it.
And it is better than this.
This.
I agree. There is Wild Hogs, which
better than this.
I really and again, Wild Hogs is one of my absolute loved films. I watch that every year. I can watch that on repeat. Peter Fonda's in it. He's great in it for his small cameo, and it's obvious he's cameoed in that because of this movie.
Yeah.
This one is the most iconic. This is the one other than maybe the Wild one, this is probably the most famous biker movie of all time.
Yeah.
Whenever you go, tell me a biker movie.
Easy Rider.
Easy Rider is the instant go-to. It's like tell me a fantasy film. It's going to be Lord of the Rings. It's that iconic.
Yeah.
So when I eventually watched it, I was more perceptive, I think, to some of the story threads it comes with.
Yeah.
Loose as they are, even being as charitable as possible, I watched the film, and this is my second viewing. I was like, this isn't as... Like, I expected to be blown away by either deep meaning or, at the very least, something that was so, at least cohesively fun. That is like, this is a slice of the time, and I love, like, the fact that we're on this great journey with these cool characters. I'm not even sure I could... Like, outside of their, like, visual design, I'm not sure I could really tell you the difference between Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper as characters in this film.
There isn't one.
Yeah, other than their aesthetic.
I don't know their names. I think their names get said right at the end of the film. I think one's called Billy, ain't they?
Something like that.
I think Dennis Hopper's Billy, I think.
It really doesn't matter.
No,
and that's that.
We never find out anything about these bikers.
No, we don't know where they've come from, why they're on this journey, and the idea, I suppose, is just they're living free.
Yeah, I ain't about that life.
Sure. Now,
so, let me tell you something.
No. Can I... So, I want to just try and be as fair as possible.
Oh, yeah, I'm about to be fair.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying you won't be. But as someone who doesn't really get the film, doesn't fully appreciate the film, I'm not sitting here going, this is great, Jamie, you should love this movie, because I don't really get it. Trying to figure out why it was such a sensation on this viewing, I think I found some of the reasons, and they do all clock in to what you said at the start. You had to be there, which is why I don't fully appreciate it even knowing this. So, you stated in your initial dialogue about this film that it was one of the first films to really push the hippie movement, or at least it's regarded as.
That,
yeah. And I think that's true, at least in the popular zeitgeist. All of a sudden, there's hippie culture, there's bikers. The bikes are almost not the most important part of that. It's the hippie part of it that's the most important. So it's like, this is a hippie thing. It's now on film. For whatever reason, it grabbed like awards during that time, probably because it was so different. The things it did with that was something that wasn't really done in film at this particular point in time. it challenged society and shone a mirror up to sort of, and we see this in the Hillbilly Cafe and things like that. The fact that just because Dennis Hopper's got long hair, it's like all this sexist stuff about, oh, he's a girl. I hear that they all bum when they're out on thing, and it's all like homophobia and all this stuff comes out. So you've got that element where the people who were in the hippie movement felt that they were being verbally and socially abused and treated negatively, which a lot of them were.
Of course.
Because of the lifestyle they'd picked. You can make your own judgments on that lifestyle.
Yeah.
But that was, and I think this film was one of the first ones to really explain that. It gives you an idea as well as how early this is. They have to explain the word dude. Like, can you imagine making a film now and having to go, look, what dude means is, they have to explain marijuana as well. What is marijuana? Well, marijuana is this. What is dude? Well, dude means this. That I think are little hints that we won't have because those things are now so ingrained in culture anyway. But in 1969, it's a much more conservative era.
Yeah, of course.
So these things are suddenly being pushed to the front and center. And go, by the way, there are drugs and they are fun.
This is Eisenhower, is it at this point?
It would have been just after Kennedy assassination.
Kennedy's assassinated in 1963.
Was he?
Yes.
Oh, yes,
he was
was.
assassinated on my mum's birthday.
Yes.
And wasn't he replaced by Dwight Eisenhower?
I honestly do not know.
No, Lyndon B. Johnson replaced him, didn't he? LBJ.
I do not know enough about American presidents, if I'm being honest.
69, actually, it might have just been Nixon coming in.
Possibly.
So, yeah, very conservative.
There's a much more conservative bent. We're now talking about hippie movement, hippie lifestyle, free travel, free life, free everything else. And we're talking about free sex, we're talking about drugs, and the other thing specifically is, and I think it's an important scene, even though unfortunately, because of the way that the actual pacing and the rest of the film is scripted, doesn't really make the impact it should do to a modern audience. There is a scene just before Jack Nicholson dies where he explains to Dennis Hopper's character why general society hates them so much. It's like, the reason they hate you, because he's not actually a hippie, he's a lawyer, isn't he? That's on the journey with them.
And it's that everyone's got the illusion of freedom, and if you point out that they're not really free, it makes them angry.
Yeah, and Dennis Hopper's like, yeah, see, they're scared of us. It's like, it doesn't make them scared of you, it makes them dangerous. And that's, I think, is incredibly important for that period of time. It's, I think, an epic timepiece as to everything. I think socio-politically, it was important at the time because of that. The problem is, where we are now, that theme has been done more than once, and also it's been done so much better. This is not like 12 Angry Men, where the theme is it was done so perfectly in that one shot that you can watch it back now, even though it's like 60 years later.
So I have two things.
Yes.
Thing number one is more picky. Thing number two is more general.
Sure.
Thing number one, the diner scene should be good.
Yeah.
The problem is it's badly made. I cannot hear shit because everyone is talking over everyone else and mumbling. I couldn't hear shit. I got the general gist of the townspeople didn't like them, but the girls fancied them because they were dangerous. I got that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't hear the specific things.
Sure.
As an overall package,
this has a terrible American soundtrack in terms of when you're with the music kicks in and when they're on the bikes.
You can't hear shit.
Soundtrack is loud.
Yeah.
When they are then in talking scenes.
Yeah. I would be willing to bet that the majority of people who saw this in the cinema and liked it
were
high.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because the film plays very much like how high people talk.
I agree with you 100%.
And I'll tell you, so what I mean is, there are lots of parts in Easy Rider. Do you know when people are high, they'll skip from topic to topic to topic?
Yeah.
That's what this film does.
Yes.
It starts off, and you're like, okay, right away we've got intrigue. These guys have sold a bunch of drugs. They've got a tube full of money. They've hidden the money in the petrol tank.
And when they stop off at a petrol station...
They stop off at the petrol station, and Dennis Hopper's getting up in Peter Fonda's face about, oh, why are you letting this hippie guy do that? Because what if he finds the money? That money's never mentioned again.
No,
It's
there's actually a point
completely
where they're like,
forgotten.
we're out of... They take the money from... Sorry, I'm transitioning the
No,
point,
go
aren't I? There's a point where they take Jack Nicholson's money after he's died. They're like, oh, well, here's his credit card and his money. They use it to go to a brothel, etc. And then after that, it's like, oh, the money's gone. Like, we used all of his money and now we're poor.
Yeah.
And it's like, what about the money in the fuel tank? Nobody references it. Nobody brings it up. You're like, but it was never taken out or used.
You then have them at the hippie commune and explore what life's like for the hippies, and you think, okay, this could be something, because it's very clear that these hippies are not going to survive.
Yeah.
Because you see them trying to survive, and they're planting crops in soil that Dennis Hopper knows won't grow.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, this is what the film's going to be. Nope, we're moving on. Okay, what is it now? Oh, we've met Jack Nicholson. Oh, this is interesting. It's lawyer meets free spirit. Oh, no, that's not happening either. Oh, now we're talking about aliens. Okay, I guess it's this film. Oh, no. Oh, now we're in this town, and holy shit, is this about to turn into a Rambo First Blood type situation?
Which, to be fair, would have been a bit better.
Where these free... Because it's got those vague tones in it.
Yeah.
Because the line I did hear was the guy being like, guarantee you they don't make it to the parish line.
Yeah.
Which makes you think, oh shit,
Now
they're
there's
going to
a
like
stake.
run them out of town. They're going
Yeah.
to like frame them for stealing this money or just actually catch them because they got the money for doing bad things.
Yeah.
No, we move on from that. Oh, Jack Nicholson's dead because we couldn't afford to pay him anymore. Oh, okay.
It is so sudden, yeah.
Now there's hookers, and this seems to be a bunch of B-roll footage that was shot at a cast party, and you've edited it together and put it in the film. It briefly touches on a lot of topics,
Yep.
all of which, fully explored, could make good movies.
Yeah.
The hippie thing, the thriller with the police thing.
Yeah.
All
It
of these could
touches
make
on
good
the
movies.
potential of a better film.
It doesn't stick to any of them.
No.
And for me personally, the only way I could imagine enjoying that would be if I was baked.
Yes.
Because,
because
they
then...
skip from topic to topic to topic like that, don't they?
Yes, you are 100% right. Here's the thing. I don't disagree with you.
Because as it stands, this isn't a film.
No, it's
There's
a
no
collection
story.
It's a collection of scenes.
Yeah, there's no story, there's no character arc, and the ending is offensively bad. Because here's the thing.
It's not badly made.
Here's how you fix the ending. Jane, you
Yeah.
fixed it. Fine. You want them to both die. Fine. Here's how you fix the ending. Make it the cops from the town. Why is it two random redneck hillbillies?
Yeah, they're not even hillbillies from that town.
Yeah, who, as far as I can tell, don't mean to kill them, or at least they don't mean to kill Dennis Hopper. Because he puts it out and goes, oh, let's just scare him a bit.
Yeah.
They're clearly meaning to just like shoot at the road near him, and they miss aim.
Yeah.
Or Hopper pisses them off when he sticks his finger up.
I think it's that one, yeah. I think that's the point. Is like because they're hippies, they're, gonna die because...
They then go back to kill Fonda to stop the witness.
Right.
I always feel bad when I dislike classic films like this, because it's like, I always sit there and go, maybe I'm too dumb to get it. But I honestly think with this one,
I think
it
you
is
have to be
because
high
if you're
to get
not
it.
high,
Yeah. Yeah. You
'Cause
have to be high to get this film, I think.
it doesn't stay with any topic long enough to tell an actual story on that topic.
Let's talk about story structure
Yeah.
as well. Like, even if you didn't like the story it was trying to tell, you could at least appreciate its structure, except this doesn't have one.
Yeah.
There is, like, as you say, like, when you jokingly said, well, at least Man of Steel had a beginning and an end, and I replied jokingly, well, this has an end, but not a beginning. It doesn't have a beginning. We start halfway through a journey.
Yeah.
And that journey, like, they stay at the hippie commune for about 10 minutes, and then they leave, and that doesn't do anything. That
Random
doesn't go
scene of them
anywhere.
swimming in a pool with two girls.
Yep, which, actually, that's a film Fonda and Hopper's sequences separately, because Peter Fonda was in hospital during that point, so they had to come back and film the Peter Fonda bits separately. He was in hospital because, I'm not sure if this is the reason, but I know that he was injured during the film because the bike that Peter Fonda rides, the American bike, has such a long front fork. It's a stupid design, like, to actually ride, because the longer the front fork is, when you turn left and right, the front wheel actually tilts, which means it's way more likely to slip out from under you and cause a crash. So he had to ride it in a very particular way. For whatever reason, it is on here somewhere that basically... oh, there we go. Essentially, Peter Fonda... So the chopper was so squirrely to ride that at one point Jack Nicholson, who was on the back behind Peter Fonda, squeezed his knees into Fonda's side to balance himself. Squeezed so hard it broke one of Fonda's ribs. Because it's squirrely as shit. Yeah, I mean, it's a flashy looking bike, but it's just not practical as a machine. I also want to discuss... Here's the thing. There are some films, and I'm never a fan of these, to be fair, but there are some films that are highly regarded, this being one of them, that are essentially just a collection of scenes. You're not watching a movie with a beginning, middle, and end as a structure. I suppose that has its place. Again, it's not my preference, but I suppose it has its place. There are obviously people that appreciate that sort of thing. When I break this film down into scenes, the Jack Nicholson sequence actually works quite well. If they'd focused more on that style of storytelling, this would have been a better movie. Because at least it's trying to say something. Because it's only with Jack Nicholson that they have the discussion in the police centre and they see that the police disdain for them. They travel to the hillbilly town and they get the abuse from the hillbillies and are basically forced to leave the diner because of the abuse and the attention they're attracting. And he's the one who, basically, we learn about weed, we learn about the term dude, and we learn about, and we get his perspective as well when he first gets high, about how the government are keeping control of information about alien life, about things like that. Now, this is obviously a trip-style conversation, but it's at least something.
Yeah.
All of that, that as well as Jack Nicholson's performance itself, are the reasons that the sequences with him are the best sequences. Every other scene around that, in pre and post that sequence, are either meaningless to the main narrative, or even if they're not, they kind of feel like filler. And the surprise for you, Jamie, is according to the trivia, the initial cut that Dennis Hopper made, that the studio forced to trim heavily... 3 hours, 47 minutes.
How? So what happened in it?
Yeah. So this is my question. This cut already, if you've cut down from, like, your first cut, the one that you thought was going to be your final, was 3 hours and 47 minutes of storytelling. I would assume as a film.
But I bet it's not. I bet it's literally them farting around.
Yeah.
Filming their whole days.
Yeah. And... I mean, the good thing is that obviously another editor came along and went, yeah, you don't need all that shit. It doesn't mean that the final film is either that coherent, but again, most films, when they chop it down, you can tell that, we've lost something. Like, there's important information has been lost because they needed to cut it for time. In this one, it just feels like there needs to be more cut for time. So it's like, what did we lose? Where was the story going to be? Yeah. And some of the other scenes we get, so the hippie commune at the beginning, there is one positive piece in there. Well, two things in that first sequence. One, Dennis Hopper is not welcome at the hippie commune for some reason, even though he's the most hippie one.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
There is no explanation as to why, but they just don't like him. They just like Peter Fonda and want him to stay.
So then I was thinking, and to be fair, this is my knowledge of Dennis Hopper's later career biasing me.
Sure.
I was like, it's going to be one of those things where there's something sinister about Dennis Hopper.
And they can sense it.
He's like a Charles Manson type or something like that. Like, he's going to be like a crazy guy who loses his shit and shanks someone. Like, ends up basically, they end up falling out over the money. That'd be a classic plot, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's all established there. They could have done that story.
Yeah. And that's me being biased because obviously Hopper went on to mostly be known for playing bad guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing it establishes, which could, again, like that, could have been an emotional story arc returned to later, but they never come back to the commune, is the fact that this commune, he states that there was quite a lot of them there that had different agricultural experience. Everyone else has buggered off, and now they're left with 20 to 30 city boys and girls who are like, they're still sowing the seeds. They're gonna, we're still hoping for a good harvest. And they actually ask, where are you going to get the water from? He goes, oh, well, I guess we'll have to pray for rain, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Dennis Hopper specifically goes, they're crazy, man. Like, there's no water here. They're going to die.
Yeah, and he's the one who says about how the soil's the wrong type of soil as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so he obviously has some knowledge. Peter Fonda's one who goes, nah, man, they're going to make it. They're going to make it. It would have been cool if towards the end of the film, as they come back that way...
If everyone was dead.
Yeah, and the commune didn't make it.
Yeah.
Or even if the commune did. If the commune did, there'd be less story. But at the very fucking least, there'd be some story.
Yeah, or even do a film where they... it's a different film, because it's more of a heartwarming film.
Sure.
But do a film where they join the commune.
Yeah.
And they find a sense of belonging in living off the land. I mean, he even says, doesn't he? I think it's Peter Fonda, being able to live off the land, like, that's the dream.
He says that to someone else. It's a Mexican guy who owns his own house, I think, isn't it? Yeah. And he goes, man, living off the land, doing your own thing, working as your own time clock, that's living the dream.
And then and after that, they go to the commune, don't they? See, that feels like it's setting that up, that's what the film will be.
Yeah.
But again, it's not.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating to watch.
Yeah, because you're seeing all these... Again, one thing this film does well is set up a lot of interesting story arcs. What it does terribly is continue them on or pay them off. Yeah, because it doesn't do any of them.
Yeah.
The closest we get is the story arc for Jack Nicholson.
It's like someone high with the munchies, and they've got 8 different bags of sweets.
Yeah.
And they can't pick which bag they want to eat.
So they're
just grabbing a couple from each bag.
Yes.
And you're like, what? And no, calm down. Strawberry, then lemon. These flavors don't go together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like someone's eating Kinder Egg and then immediately stuffing Haribo Tang-Fastics in their mouth. That don't go together.
No. Then a hobnob.
Yeah. So licorice all sorts. Like, no.
What are you doing?
Washing it down with iron brew.
Or a call out to Haunted using garlic sausage and
jelly
babas.
Jelly babas. Yeah, so I don't want to, because I used to do this on Jamie, Your Film Taste Sucks.
Yeah.
And I used to over-exaggerate and be like, this is awful, and if you like it, you're stupid, blah, 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 blah. It just isn't for me, bro. It just isn't for me. I never want to see this again. I feel like I've wasted the last 90 minutes of my life. If I now die tonight, and that was the last film I ever saw, my soul will not be able to rest.
You're going to have to watch another film before you go to bed, I think.
And will haunt reality.
Yeah. It is a shame, because with the reputation this has got, I want to love this movie. But there's just nowhere near enough in it to do so. And it's a shame, because the ingredients technically are there. You've got some... And Jack Nicholson still gives a great performance despite having very little to do.
Yeah. Best actor in it. It's the best performance in it.
Yeah. And he's got a distinct character.
Yeah, and a distinct accent. He doesn't sound like Jack Nicholson usually sounds.
No, that's true.
Yeah, but by a landslide, it's not even close. Looking at this film, like if I was in 1969 and you put this film in front of me and said which of these 3 is going to be the biggest star, it's easy. I'd be like, that guy. It's that guy.
Yeah.
He literally feels different in the film. Now that's going to sound really silly. He feels different in the film.
To them.
No. To me as a viewer, Jack Nicholson... I'm going to sound so crazy because I realise this isn't possible. He literally felt brighter on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Fonda and Hopper feel faded. Like they're faded into the grain of the film.
Yeah, it's weird because I agree with you.
Yeah, it almost feels like Nicholson's got a spotlight on him as if they lit him differently.
They didn't, but it feels like it. Yeah.
And that's why I said it sounds crazy, it sounds impossible.
It's his charisma.
Yeah, it is. When he talks, I shut up and listen. Well, to be fair, Hopper's a good actor, but Hopper's mumbling through that giant fucking mustache in this.
But I think it's probably also because he's incredibly high.
Yeah. When Nicholson talks, I listen. I listen when he's going on about fucking Venusian aliens coming to Earth and stuff. I listen when he's doing his, you tell a man who thinks he's free that he's not free, and well, believe me, he's just not gonna like that. I listen. I didn't. It was hard to listen when Fonda or Hopper were talking.
Yeah, and it would have been probably a bit easier if you knew that most of what they were talking about was worth listening to.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it is such a shame for me, because, as I say, the only other major biker movie, because there's not many, let's be honest. I like biker movies. We've watched two before, but ain't no one out there going, Wild Hogs, fucking classic film that really, is the epitome of biker movie when you think of it. And Pray for the Wildcats is little known at all, even in biker circles. This is the biggest one. The only other one is The Wild One. The Wild One has a beginning, middle, and end. It has a narrative that completes. Kind of like this, actually. The shining character in The Wild One is not the leads at all. The one who steals that show is Lee Marvin. It's Chino. Yeah. He's like Jack Nicholson is only in this for 17 minutes. And weirdly enough, Jack Nicholson's character in this is bigger to the plot than Chino is to The Wild One. Lee Marvin really stands out on the screen. Yeah. By far the best thing in that film. But when you watch it now, even if you don't like biker stuff, even if you don't care for the story or the romance plot or any of that, even if you don't care for that, you can appreciate it follows a decent story structure, and it will tell you a story from beginning, middle to end.
Yeah.
It's so sorely missing in Easy Rider. It is, for me, this is definitely a case of you had to be there for this film to give you the culture. And if you're watching it now, let's say you were around in that era and you loved it when it came out because you were high, and it spoke to, maybe you were in the hippie movement and it spoke to you in that time frame, and you watch it now and you still fondly go, this is a great movie, I love this film, be honest with yourself, it's the nostalgia. It's the nostalgia.
Or just make sure every time you rewatch it, you bait.
That helps. Definitely helps.
Not that we encourage drug use on this podcast.
No. I will say as well, the drug use in this is fascinating insofar as, not within the film itself per se, but in a grander sense, because this predates things like Cheech and Chong. It predates, certainly anything from Seth Rogen by a long margin.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
It's probably not the original drug film, but it's
madness, isn't it?
Yeah. But this one is, certainly as a counterculture, one of the big startups of going,
obviously the difference in Reefer Madness is very clearly anti the marijuana.
Yeah, so this
and it makes all these insane claims about what marijuana can do.
Yeah, Reefer Madness is culture, this is counterculture. That's a big difference. But this is probably the first proper big counterculture movie that showed drugs, showed the enjoyment of drugs as largely positive, because the drugs don't kill anyone. It's society that kills everyone who dies in this film. The acceptable conservative society. In that regard, I suppose it kind of is propaganda as well, because I don't think there are any decent conservative-leaning characters. Like, all of the people, every single person in any position of authority is scum in this film. And all of the people, even the arseholes in the commune, are still not on the same level as abusing their power.
No.
So, in that sense, you could consider it maybe propaganda as well. Certainly after a big era like the 50s, where the propaganda was the other way. They'd actually outlawed left-leaning movies.
Yeah.
So in that sense, maybe that is another time where it just hit the zeitgeist at the right time.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, we can talk about this shit again? And this film told us we could talk about this shit again. I'm at this point, I think I'm kind of out of things to say. I'm just trying to explain to myself why this film has the reputation it's got. I don't have that answer, so if I keep going, I'm just going to get circular.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for another episode of Second Take Cinema. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it greatly. If you could possibly please leave us a review, like, subscribe, share, etc., all the usual stuff. And if you're interested in hearing any other shows on the Impala Network, please look out for VGMP, the Video Game Movie Podcast, where Rory and I discuss video game-based movies. That's a lot of fun. And we also do Haunted the Audio Drama, a full-cast narrative audio drama. It's sort of a horror, action, adventure, comedy mashup, with a long-running storyline combined with Monster of the Week episodes that you can drop in and drop out of, and hopefully more shows in the future. Thank you everyone for taking the time to listen. What did you think of Easy Rider? Do you want to tell us why we're wrong? Were you baked when you watched it? Let us know. Until next time, bye-bye.